Me, 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 me. All right there?
Just a touch of the tuberculosis, no big
Yeah,
deal.
just a touch of the consumption. Yes. Get over this. Get over. That's what they used to call it.
Much worse than
Yeah.
that, actually.
Oh, consumption. There's your history lesson. Welcome to Random Encounter, the RPG Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have...
Dennis, turn-based dude in the boards.
Zach.
Great start, guys. All right, come on, Zach.
Okay, I'm Zach Pintchik, super flat on the boards.
And Kyle Miller. Kyle Miller on the boards.
See, that's the easy one. That's the easy one. All right, so we have lots and lots of games to talk about this week. Of course, we have lots of Dragon Quest IX to talk about. That seems to be the game that everybody's playing. My eyes are still bloodshot from having beaten it in a week. We were going to have a topic for you guys, but we're kind of afraid that the show's going to go a little long if we go into that. So Zach has an extra long news section for us because we have lots and lots of news to talk about, including one of my favorite games, Demon's Souls. Woohoo! So... who wants to start with what they've been playing? Somebody, give me games. Games.
I'll go. I've got just a short list this week. I've been playing Half Minute Hero, which is very interesting. I mean, I've only played, it's in like minute chunks, so I've probably played 30 minutes of it in total. But it's been fun. It takes out everything that one could possibly hate about JRPGs, which is like grinding and like crappy story and just those two things, a battle system, and it just throws them out the window and lets you get on your merry way.
Yeah, it's a great parody of the whole genre.
Can you guys just describe it a little bit for the listeners that don't know too much about it? Just a real brief.
Yeah, so basically there's this evil lord person that has figured out a spell to destroy the world in 30 seconds. And so you at first you fail, he destroys the world, but then the goddess of time comes and turns back time and sets up a deal where you can pay her to restore time. So at the beginning of each level, this evil lord teaches this spell to a new kind of smaller evil lord, and so you have to defeat him within like 30 seconds to a minute, because you can then turn back.
You get cheat time.
Yeah, so it's and like there's no battle system. Basically you just run around and it's like auto fight. Just everything is super fast. You're running around the map really quickly. It's interesting to kind of see how it turns genre conventions just complete. It's like basically the anti-RPG. It's so far away from the 90-100 hour Persona 4 or Dragon Quest 9 or 8. It's the exact opposite of that, and I had a lot of fun playing. I'm looking forward to playing more of it, and there are actually a couple more modes than just like the
three more to be exact, and then there's the extension of the hero mode that you'll soon experience after you beat all the other four. Like he said, it's pretty much kind of the anti-RPG. It's like, name one other game where the battles last 1 second and you gain like 3 to 5 levels, and just instantaneously like that.
I like it already.
Yeah, and it just pokes fun of even the genre itself. Like, for example, in the beginning, the time goddess gives you a choice if you want to make the pact with her or not. If you say no, she's not going to listen anyway, and she'll just quote-unquote say, was there any RPG where you could progress the game by saying no? Heart.
Yeah, I was tempted to pick that option, but
that was the
15 seconds that I already invested in the game was too much for me to lose.
Right.
Like there was no game over. She's just gonna poke fun. It's like, no one ever works in the RPG game. Just pick yes already.
And now this thing is on PSP, correctly?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It's on
Yeah.
PSP. I think it came out last year, 2 years ago, sometime within the past 2 years.
And I could actually vouch for the other modes. Basically, like there are 3 others. One is kind of an light RTS, but it's not as good. But I really love the story and dialogue in it. It's just hilarious. The third mode is pretty much a shooter, a twitching shooter kind of thing, and the fourth mode is just basically a defense kind of game of sorts. All fun stuff. They're all kind of interconnected into one main story, even though there are 4 different gameplay modes.
Yeah, I've just been playing through the hero mode. I figure I feel like they're kind of connected story, so I figured I'd play through one and get through the rest.
Yeah, but it's kind of good standalone. It's like I was just skipping around the first because the other 3 modes are way, way shorter than the hero mode.
Oh, okay.
You'll see.
Gotcha.
Excellent.
It's
Excellent.
like hero mode lasts like 10 hours or so. The other 3 last like 1 hour each.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So what else you got to tell us about, Zach?
And the other game that I've been playing this week is Might and Magic Clash of Heroes for the Nintendo DS. It's for those of you who are unaware, it's by the people who did Critter Crunch on the iPhone and PS3, and basically it's a mashup between the puzzle genre and the RPG sort of strategy genre. And basically you start off the game. It's a fairly standard fantasy story where demons are trying to destroy the world, and they're trying to sabotage these kingdoms and stuff, and demons attack, etc. But you're given the DS battlefield is split up into the opponent's side and your side, and you have to move around your colored units to make matches of 3 that will then attack in a given amount of turns. And so I mean, basically it's like, if you have played Critter Crunch, it's a mix of that and, say, I don't know, Fire Emblem. It's probably easier than Fire Emblem, but I've been enjoying it. It's another kind of unconventional take on the JRPG sort of mold, and I've been having a bit less success with that just because I'm not quite getting the puzzle elements yet, but it's fun. I've been traveling a little bit more than usual this 2 weeks, so I didn't have any time to sit down and jump on a console. So those are my 2 games for the week.
Excellent. All right, so what else do we have to talk about? Either Kyle or Dennis, go.
I'll start up a little bit. So yeah, I haven't actually done that much extensive RPG gaming the last 2 weeks. Well, a lot of Dragon Quest IX, but I'm going to leave it to the rest of you to talk about it since I've talked my share last week. And other than that, I was just playing some Persona 3 Portable, just on the train rides and such like that. And third RPG I've actually played only like 1 hour of it is something you probably didn't expect me to play, at least at this point. I actually picked up Mass Effect 2 2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy God, you picked up a white RPG?
Yes. Dun, dun, dun. So I've only played an hour of that, and I'll just say my impressions a little bit. I like the way the game starts off a lot more than 1, which just took me like a couple of hours to at least get remotely into, or at least things pick up a lot faster right from the get-go, so I appreciate that. And another thing is, I could kind of see the gameplays tighten up a little bit, even though I'm just not like wowed or anything like that. And since I played it, I got the 360 version, and I played the first game on the 360, so I imported my save data and all that, and I kind of liked how the stuff I did in the first game kind of affect some lines and such from the second game, so I appreciate that. Not much to say otherwise. Only into an hour in the game, I just left at the station and going to meet the elusive one.
The elusive man. So it's their take on the smoking man from the X-Files.
Okay, elusive quote man.
I'm just correcting you, man, because those boards people, they're gonna come after you on that. Gotta make sure you get that right.
Well,
so.
I only heard the name like 3 times or so it'll take a little bit to memorize it. But
now,
pretty positive so far. I'm just like, oh my god, awesome kind of thing.
So now
we'll see.
So now, what's your take, Dennis, on them kind of taking away? Because we were talking on the boards during the past week on this. What's your take on them kind of reducing the RPG elements and kind of increasing the amount of skill-based combat. Like now the game is a shooter, and the RPG elements are mostly in the actual role playing and the like enhancement of skills and stuff. So what do you think about that? Are you for that or against that? That seemed to be a very
kind of against it because it just feels like, yeah, I was not into the whole shooter thing. Whereas I kind of like, stats and something to work on, something to build on and stuff. Skill based and all, it's like, yeah, it was never that much for me, and I just couldn't get into the shooter genre in general. But only gave the shot only because I actually played the first game and actually beaten it. So it's like, yeah, I'll continue on with 2 and see how that goes. To at least see how it goes, even though I'm not much of a fanatic of it. But yeah, it's not like my cup of tea gameplay-wise, but I'm just sticking with it.
Now, Kyle, you're a fanatic of Mass Effect 2, so do you have anything to say to Dennis?
I wouldn't call myself a fanatic of anything.
Dude, your review, you loved all over that game. You even said you weren't objective anymore.
Yeah, it's like you got emotionally attached to the story and everything and no amount to buy. And you just can't help but be biased.
Yes, I would admit to that, but...
and you just think, who am I kidding about Mass Effect? Sorry.
I think it had a few flaws, but as far as the toning down of the RPG elements, I mean, I agree with Dennis. I think they maybe overdid it a little bit with the streamlining, which makes me worry that they're going in that direction with all their games, which might not be the case. But
yeah, I think with the streamlining thing, it's like I actually glad they streamlined the equipment stuff because I hated that in the first game. I didn't want to streamline the shooter, like the RPG elements, just the item management.
Oh god, the menus are awful in the first one.
Yeah. I took me like an hour to figure out just how to do weapon mods. I was just like, what am I doing here? What's going on?
Well, did you have an HD TV at the very least? Because I was playing on a 10-inch TV.
Ooh. Oh god. No, I mean, I mentioned on the boards this week that I'm kind of more of a fan of skill-based RPGs. Like I like RPGs and I like stat building, but it's also that's an intangible thing that can sometimes take me out of the experience.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite in that regard. It's like I like stat-based stuff.
I like it, but I don't. I just think that sometimes it can be overdone, or sometimes it can completely take me out of a game. And Mass Effect, it was very bread and butter. Mass Effect 2 was very bread and butter in terms of shooter, but I liked that because the first game was trying to be a shooter. The second game is a shooter. So it felt more natural to me, and I think I only died on one part in the whole game because I'm a pretty competent shooter player, so I just kind of barreled my whole way through, and I don't think I even came close to dying after like one encounter. Like it was pretty easy for me.
Yeah, it's like I died in the station on normal mode. Yeah, I suck.
You got to be a sniper, man. You got to be a sniper. It's so overpowered. Just everything slows down. You just shoot it in the head. I said that. I said that in my PC review.
I wasn't a soldier in the first game, so I decided to try a different class. I went with Infiltrator and see how that'll go.
Yeah, the Infiltrator is really nice, and I just...
Okay, good. I didn't pick a sucky one.
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Adept the first time, and that was terrible. But yeah, I mentioned in my review of Mass Effect 2 that I was playing the game because I wasn't very invested in the story, just because I do think the Mass Effect 2 suffers from being the middle part of a trilogy. But I was playing the whole game through because it was just a lot of fun to shoot aliens in the face, and you do that a lot in this game. Like, I think I shot, maybe the whole population of the Asari, like, in the face over and over again. And I like that.
So, yeah, as for non-RPG stuff, just been actually practicing up on BlazBlue a little bit because that's the only fighter I actually care for and I actually like to be decent at it, whereas other fighters I'm casual. But, yeah, I won't delve that much into it. Continuous Shift is next week. I'm excited for it. And the other thing I did actually on Friday was actually something pretty interesting. It's like I was just on my way to lunch from work, and on the way I just went across Macy's, and interesting enough, they have Kinect on display, and you can actually try it out.
Ooh, interesting.
So yeah, it's like, hey, why not? I decided to give it a shot. Kind of interesting experience, but it wasn't that responsive because they picked a bad location. A lot of people were passing by behind me, therefore messing up my movements. And you really need to be quite far to effectively play the game.
Yeah, I can't wait for the 60-hour RPG that requires Kinect. That'll be awesome.
I was just thinking that moments before the podcast. Like, yeah, I wonder how that'll work in the RPG genre.
It won't. Nobody will do it.
Shake your hand on the top right to attack. Just hold it there for a couple more seconds.
Shepard, do you want to be a dick? Shake your fist at someone.
or if you want to move around the world, the field map, you have to literally run.
Yeah, run, fat boy, run.
Like you have to move your legs up and down, up and down, up and down.
Possibilities are endless.
Yes, the RPG possibilities of Kinect. All right, I'm gonna leave Kinect before Eric, starts telepathically smacking me for talking about things other than RPGs.
Well,
so,
like I said, I just wanted to keep it short. It's like, yeah, that was what I experienced.
So now, if you're done, Dennis, I think we'll move on to Kyle. But I think Kyle only has Dragon Quest IX to talk about, if I'm correct.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about that indie RPG I was just playing.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
It's called Eschalon Book 2 by Basilisk Games. Came out this year, pretty recently. I think the only other thing that company has developed was Eschalon Book 1, obviously. It has all the trappings of a old school PC RPG like Baldur's Gate or Fallout 1 and 2. That kind of thing. It's actually pretty close to Fallout 1 and 2 because it's turn-based, interestingly.
Ooh.
In other words, if you just sit there, nothing will happen, but every time you move, the enemy will also move. So it's not quite real-time. But with the character I made, I spent 10 hours with the game, and I cannot get any farther. It's impossible.
Did you break your character, or is it just too hard? What's the problem?
It's too difficult. I just cannot defeat the enemies. And I was reading on some forums and stuff that not to go with a completely melee fighter character, and that's exactly what I did. So I guess it would be probably a completely different experience if I would have chosen a different character, but I really don't feel like restarting. I like some of the stuff in the game. It's really complex, which I think games are lacking. Mass Effect 2, for instance. They're too streamlined, and there's a lot in this game, a lot of different little rules and stuff that really make it more realistic and fun, but I can't get any farther. And
Can you turn down the difficulty? Because, I'll admit, I turned down the difficulty on Dragon Age for a couple hours because I was completely breaking my group, and just to get, a couple of skill points and get everything working again. Can you turn down the difficulty in this game or no?
No, you can't. At the beginning, you have some choices to turn off some house rules, they call them, like needing food and water, for instance. You can actually turn it off, which is a really cool feature. But at this point, you can't change it. All the rules are fixed. So
Imagine
my
how
character.
much money will say. Sorry. Go on.
So my character is basically screwed and destined for the grave.
I'm sorry, dude. That's one of my biggest fears, and especially Western RPGs, is you have such this open-ended type of game experience where you can really make the character that you want to make, but at the same time you could also be like playing Fallout 3 and put all your skill points into barter for some idiotic reason and then completely screw yourself. So
yeah, but with this game, see, I didn't. I mean, I just boosted my strength, and the stuff that in other games would normally make a really overpowered character, and it just didn't, which, I mean, I can't completely fault the game because it could have been really fun had I made a different character, but just the fact that this can happen, there's obviously problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's understandable. And I just wanted to comment on the whole food and water thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you earlier. I was just thinking to myself, if you could turn that off in the game, imagine how much money we'll save if we could turn it off in real life and then we'll have the need for food and water.
Oh God. Well, that sucks, Kyle. I feel your pain, sir. I feel your pain. So
I think maybe at least try the mage just to see how it is a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I
That's
was
just my
thinking about
suggestion.
it, but I don't know, 10 hours just.
Yeah,
Give it a day or two, then decide.
That's a lot of time to go back. Like, I was maybe 30 hours into Dragon Age, and my crew was just completely screwed over. And I just toned down the difficulty for 2 or 3 hours, got a couple level ups, and I got like the 2 best spells in the game, and I was fine from there on out. But like, I wouldn't have restarted that game just to try not to screw up my character again. It's hard. But then again, when it comes to Diablo, I would do that at any time. Like, I love playing a game like Diablo that's nice and quick with the level ups. And
I mean, it's an interesting thing, because like the fact that you can screw up your character is something that I'm not a huge fan of, and like especially when you can invest 10 hours, 30 hours into your party, that kind of I would feel like I was cheated, and then in turn have to download like a respec trainer cheat thing, because I know that's what a lot of people were doing for Dragon Age once they kind of figured out how the game worked.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I might wait to play Dragon Age 2 until people figure out how it works, and I can make sure I don't screw myself. So.
At least that's one nice thing, because we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest IX soon. It's like, even if you decide to, change the different weapons or different classes and stuff, it's quite forgiving.
Yeah, you just, spend another 20 hours of your time trying to get your levels back up. So.
Well, it didn't take me that long.
No. So is that the only game that you're playing outside of Dragon Quest IX, Kyle?
Yep, and I'm not playing it anymore.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll bring us home. Start putting us in the direction of Dragon Quest IX. But if I could just have a brief, moment of silence for my PS3. I got the Yellow Light of Death a week and a half ago, and I'm ever so pissed. Gonna have to turn it in. I've probably lost all my progress and all my games. I'm praying to God I get a 60 gig PlayStation 3 back. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go out and buy a PlayStation 2 so I can play on my PlayStation 2 games. Not fun to have your console die on you, and I really don't like the fact that Sony wants to charge me $150. But anywho, I promised Neil that if we have him back on the show, we'll talk about hardware failure back then. So just wanted to explain to everybody my pain. So because of that, I've been playing my DS like a fiend, and I'm really happy that Dennis made me get a DS. So
actually, interestingly enough, I have also succumbed to the DSi XL.
Oh God!
Pushing, so that's another one. Bronze.
Yeah, I like the Cigar Black. That's what it's called in Japan, and I like that a lot more. Yeah, it's called Cigar Black.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was like dark brown or something.
Yeah. The other friend I convinced also got a Cigar Black. So
yeah. Cigar Brown. I don't know why I was saying black, but yeah, Cigar Brown. And I have just been playing that thing like a fiend. Like I picked up a bunch of games because once again EB had a sale last week, so I picked
that's
up.
What I dealt with also.
I picked up what Yahtzee calls Twewi. The World Ends With You. I haven't had a chance to start playing it yet, but the number of zippers on that box just kind of makes me wonder if I'm going to like it. But I figured I'll give it a try. I've been playing a lot of Chinatown Wars, which I really like. I know it's not an RPG, but definitely a good experience if you're looking for a good Grand Theft Auto game. Played a lot of Dragon Quest IX, and we're going to talk about that in like 5 minutes. The other game I want to talk about, just very, very briefly, because I don't want to tick anybody off, was Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey. And I've played that for about 6 hours right now. I think I was mentioning on the boards a little bit. Again, I am Pale Robbie on the boards, so I'm sure some people, A, think I'm an idiot, and B, think I'm a total, wuss for not being good at SMT games. Let me give a little background on me. I started out with the SMT games with Persona 3 and Persona 4, and I love those 2 games dearly. I really had a good time with them, love them. I think somebody going into Strange Journey, going into a mainline SMT game, if you're coming off the Persona series, you really don't know what you're in for. Like, you're in for a very hardcore RPG experience that is a few notches up from Persona. And, I like Strange Journey. I'm definitely having a good time with it. After I'm going to give it a break for like a week because, that little game comes out on Tuesday. What's that game called? Something Craft 2? I don't know. It seems to be a big deal.
Blaze Blue?
No, it seems to be a big deal in Korea. I don't know. People seem to like it. And I like Strange Journey, but I think that it does some things that really, really tick me off. Like, just some of the dungeon designs are really obtuse. Like, I'm in one dungeon design right now where, like, they have the pits that you can fall through, and then you have to go backwards. I'm not a fan of the demon conversation system, and I know that a lot of people really like it, and I had people on the boards explain it to me, and I was grateful for that. But it feels like even if I give the correct response, I'll sometimes screw up the conversation and the demon will just attack me. And I know that that's a result of the moon phases and there's all these different elements to it, but all that is randomness. And all that randomness just aggravates me in an RPG. We already talked about it. I don't like randomness in my RPGs. And Strange Journey has a lot of it. I'm not saying that makes it a bad game. I'm just saying that for me, I'm very frustrated playing Strange Journey, which is a shame because I really like the story. I like the fact that they're going for like a kind of alien vibe, a science fiction vibe to a JRPG is, awesome. I really like that. I like the first person dungeon crawling. I was a fan of Shining in the Darkness back in the day. So, I mean, I definitely like Strange Journey. I'm going to give it another try, but I would say fair warning to people that, maybe are just coming from the Persona series. This is a very different type of game. It's a little bit harder, and it's a much more focused dungeon crawl type game. But I'm liking it, and I'm going to give it some more work as I go on. So, all right, we've talked for about half an hour, and we haven't started talking about Dragon Quest IX. So I'm going to give the floor to Kyle because he's writing one of our second opinions of Dragon Quest IX. Kyle, what do you think of this game? What do you think?
When I first started it, I was actually really into it, and I have had a waning interest in traditional Japanese RPGs lately, but I was really enjoying it. I didn't think it was as good as 8, but I was really into it. And now I'm about 20 hours in, and I'm kind of, I don't know, my response to it now is just kind of tepid. It's not bad. It's pretty fun. I find that the character progression is a little slow.
Yeah.
Skill acquisition's a little slow, and then the skills you get sometimes aren't even very cool, which kind of bothers me. And some of the battles take a little bit too long. I don't know, maybe my party just sucks or something.
What's your party build?
Right now I have what are they called? Minstrels, and a warrior, a priest, and a rogue. I had a mage, but I turned her into a rogue so I could steal items.
I leveled thief for a little bit, and I just went transferred to another character. It still carried over the thief skills, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I totally see where Kyle's coming from, though, and this was one of my bigger problems with Dragon Quest VIII. And I really like Dragon Quest VIII, but it kind of feels like the combat doesn't change from the moment that you get a 4-person party until the end of the game. Like, every enemy in the game takes between 3 or 4 hits.
That's true.
Your party doesn't really get any new skills that are extremely useful. Like, eventually your martial artist can get a skill that is basically 2 attacks. And once I got that, like, she was doing so much damage that I could take out almost anything really fast. But I see it feels like combat is never changing. Like, you fight the same, like, really cool looking enemies. I love Toriyama's design in the game.
Yeah, there.
I like the Magician. Like, I almost had to close the DS. I was laughing so hard.
So how about them puns, anyone?
I like them. I like puns.
I like you, Rob. I actually agree on this. I actually like puns quite a bit, and I don't understand why people hate on it so much. It's like, it's stupid, it's childish. No, it's fun. That's part of what makes Dragon Quest charming, because it's silly dialogue.
I'll tell you why people hate it, okay? And I'm not making fun of people on the boards. This goes back to the argument that has always gone on whenever anything is translated from Japanese into English. You have some people that really enjoy it when the core Japanese language makes it into English and it's a direct translation. And then you have people like me who like it when it sounds proper. This is the difference between, and it's not an RPG, but it's the best example I can think of. This is the difference between the original Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. Metal Gear Solid 1, Jeremy Blaustein, I believe was his name, he got a lot of flack because he went in and completely reworked Kojima's script, and he made sure that game sounded natural. In fact, the only scene in that game that Kojima went back and changed was the love blooming on a battlefield, and that's why it sounds like crap. But the rest of the game sounds like a Jerry Bruckheimer summer blockbuster, and it sounds very natural. Then you listen to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, and the dialogue sounds stilted and awkward because it's the Japanese language, and we're not fixed with that. If you do a direct translation, it sometimes won't sound proper. And now some people like that sort of thing, and they're like, no, I want you to make sure that when you translate it, we get the exact same thing. But things like the puns, they won't find their way into the English language. Like,
Yes,
it won't
exactly.
happen. So I don't know. I like the puns.
Yeah.
I think they're perfectly fine.
Basically, it's like, it's called localization for a reason. You don't sometimes do direct translations. You try to make it accessible to a wider. It's like, sure, there are games like Persona that technically isn't a Japanese place and stuff, so went with the feel, right? Then there are other games where it just feels like it's in the random fantasy world, and you're just trying to localize it, to try to make it sound more natural than instead of that word for word on what it said in Japan, things like that.
Yeah.
And again, continuing on the puns, the only times when the puns can get a little cringeworthy is when it's voiced. When I read it, it's fun. Voice, it's hit or miss.
Yeah. And then they also do a weird thing with the dialogue that I think the dialogue would be great if it was spoken, but it kind of suffers from the Chrono Cross problem that reading broken French or Cockney English is really, really nasty. Like seeing all these apostrophes and.
Okay, speaking of that, do not play Dragon Quest IV then. The localization, they really went heavy in the accents. Like, don't get me started in the Scottish.
Yeah. Like it is hard to read, but it does give the game a lot of charm, and I think that's Dragon Quest IX's biggest thing is charm. Now,
whereas a lot of games just seems to go serious business or brooding and angst and stuff. Dragon Quest, even if it has its serious modes, at least it remains lighthearted and fun. Something that seems to be missing in a lot of RPGs at times.
Yep. Now, Kyle, you were talking about the slow character progression. Now,
right.
Have you tried like switching up your character classes? Like I kept on switching my main character. I went from minstrel to warrior to paladin eventually, and I was just finding I was getting bored with my main character after like a couple hours and just changing, and I think that's a plus.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't changed a whole lot, but I think I'm gonna try it because I'm just kind of getting bored. The skill progressions just don't. I like getting, permanent bonuses to my abilities, but other than that, like hot lick, a fire
hit or
attack,
miss in the skills.
it does less damage than a regular attack. Cool,
Yeah,
but the name is cool. That's important.
Yeah, the name's cool, but no, Kyle's 100% right. I just feel like I really enjoyed Dragon Quest for about 25 hours, and I beat it in about 32. And the last couple hours of that game, really, I felt the grind. I really felt the grind. I was really getting tired of fights because they were just the fights start off very quick and then they start taking too long. And it's like the 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing that really frustrates me. Like the fact that they got rid of random encounters. I'm like, yes, thank you, God, this is awesome. But the fact that I have to heal on the field, and if I heal on the field, I could end up being surrounded by enemies and automatically get into another fight is just like, I want to break something. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I found that pretty stupid. I mean, it doesn't pause when you go into a menu, so you get out of a menu and then bam, another battle. I found that kind of foolish, I guess.
I guess it's stupid, but it never bothered me, so I guess just
But
deal with it.
There's a couple parts in the game, particularly as you get close to the end, where you have to travel a really long way, like in between story points and in between save points. And the game's not hard, but you have to travel a really long way. And if you stop to fight in every battle, like you're not going to make it. You're going to run out of MP. You're going to run out of healing items. You're not going to make it. So I did find that sometimes I was just avoiding battles, which was really, really cool, and I really, really liked that. But then the last couple dungeons, they start putting like these really small corridors so you can't avoid the battles. And it's like, well, God, I don't want to fight that troll. It's going to take like 5 minutes. I don't want to fight that thing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has killed JRPGs for me is incredibly long battles. I mean, if they're turn-based battles, I want them to be quick. Over in like Tales. This Tales series does it really well. They always have battles that can take like 10 seconds or even like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And those are awesome.
And I feel like every week I bring it up, but I think it's because I started out as a huge JRPG fan. Like those are the RPGs I started out with. But then around the PlayStation 2 era and these past couple of years, I've gotten more and more into Western RPGs. And really the only JRPG that brought me back, and I really enjoyed it, was Persona, because the Persona games, the battles are so fast, they're so strategic, and they have this nice mechanic where it's almost like a survival game, because you can only go so far before you run out of, like, you know, MP or EP or SP, whatever it's called. You run out of your magic, so that you kind of have to retreat. So it's about like a little bit of forward progress, and then you go back and you do other things, and then you come back. But the battles are nice and quick and really satisfying. And now that I'm playing like Dragon Quest IX and even playing Final Fantasy 13, like they're missing that punch. And I really feel like Persona is knocking it out of the park with that punch in the battle system.
For me, I feel like just coming off of Half Minute Hero, I would not be able to play Dragon Quest IX right now. It's the exact opposite. There's too much. You know, like I've never spent probably more than 5 seconds in battle in Half Minute Hero, which compared to like a 5-minute just standard fight out on the field it seems almost silly. I mean, and granted, Half Minute Hero is kind of silly in its in its nature, but
yeah. Well, 5 minutes, I was definitely using hyperbole. Like very few of the fights take 5 minutes, but it is the same length every time. You fight 3 or 4 enemies, and each one takes between 3 or 4 like hits from your party. So it's about 2 to 3 rounds to get through the fight, and it's just same thing over and over again.
Just slightly too long.
Yeah, and there's just not enough spice, and I can't remember if Dragon Quest VIII was missing that too. But I think what really made Dragon Quest VIII for me was just that huge open world and just really feeling like you're on an adventure.
Yeah, I think a couple other things about Dragon Quest IX, and I think they're a result of multiplayer that make it different from or worse than 8, is first of all the lack of actual NPCs, which is really disappointing because in 8 they were so colorful, they had great voices, they were just really cool. And then now in 9 they're just models, they're just
random dude 8.
Yeah,
I guess I'm kind of okay with it. It's like, yeah, it's consider a step backwards, but then again, I've played. It's just in another perspective. It's just a tribute to the much older ones. For example, I don't think any of you played it, but basically 9 is pretty much a souped-up version of 3, which I've played the SNES version of actually. So which has pretty much the same things. You form your party, you go to this world, build up your team, it's class-based, stuff like that. 9 just adds a lot more to it. So I like 3, so I wind up liking 9 also. Because of it, and as for the grind, I've just been more patient because, honestly, after what I've dealt with in Final Fantasy 11, which was really the crazy grind, I'm pretty much patient for whatever. And I also just play a lot of things on the go, so it's like, okay, 15-minute train ride and stuff. I'll pick it up hours later, stuff like that. I just kind of keep taking it a little slow instead of marathoning it.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the big things about Dragon Quest IX that I can't speak highly enough about. This game is designed for the DS. Like, this is not okay. Like Strange Journey, for example, is an SMT game on the DS. This is a Dragon Quest game designed for the DS, designed with the DS in mind. Just from everything from the menu system to the way you use the stylus to the way the map is on the top screen and you're on the bottom. It just feels like it was really designed with the DS in mind, and it's really taking advantage of the DS, and I love it for that. But I do feel like it's after Dragon Quest VIII was so revolutionary for the series, and for most Americans it was our first Dragon Quest game, it kind of set our expectations a little too high. And so then when we go into Dragon Quest IX, which is more like a traditional Dragon Quest game, and it's kind of taking some things away, we're sort of sitting here going, no, wait, we really liked Dragon Quest VIII. We wanted, an even bigger world with more crap to find. So
maybe 10 will do that, but we'll see.
No, 10 won't do that. 10's on the Wii. It can't possibly be good. Oh, I'm sorry. I was kidding. I was kidding.
No, he's serious.
Yeah, he is. I think having it on the DS though brings its own problems. Like, first of all, I hate 3D graphics on the DS.
But these look so good. They
look so good. Them. It looks. It's the best. It's the best it can look, but it's still. I don't know. It's still muddy, and it just drives me nuts.
I mean,
Because I feel like 8 was so beautiful. Like, why couldn't it have been on a console? Go with the cell shaded graphics if you want. It would have been amazing.
Yeah. The console generation of JRPGs, and especially for simplistic games like Dragon Quest, probably wouldn't fare as well, or you could have put it on the Wii.
yeah, I mean, Dragon Quest VIII didn't sell that well in America, did it? Like, it sold decently, but I can't remember the exact numbers. But then again, a lot of people were just buying it for the Final Fantasy XII demo. So.
I knew friends that did that.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with Kyle. Like, I really loved Dragon Quest VIII. That was probably one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I loved it too. I just appreciate 9 for what it is. You know.
Yeah, and I think that if you go into 9 knowing what you're getting, and I think we're all also kind of missing out on the fact that nobody here's played it multiplayer, and that's what the game.
Actually, I did a little bit of it.
You did? Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it was just, remember that last time I just talked about it was during this event. I didn't play it since, but I just experienced it a little bit. It was kind of interesting. Your party members can actually go on their own separate battles and stuff like that. So if they're lagging behind, they're caught on enemies, it's just them alone while you're just ahead. You could just join up to help them, but if not, oh well. It's kind of like how Persona did it, in that sense where,
yeah,
like with the party split up there on their own a little bit, you could just jump in to help.
Yeah.
Same deal.
And I think I talked about it when we were doing the pre-show warm-up. Like, I think that Dragon Quest IX is a multiplayer-focused game, but I don't think the single player stands up as well as other multiplayer-focused games. Like Diablo is a lot of fun single player. Phantasy Star Universe can be a lot of fun single player. Dragon Quest IX, like I think that you're kind of missing the biggest element by missing out on the multiplayer. And so I'm glad I'm not reviewing the game, because I would want to go out and experience the multiplayer before I did. I know Sam talked about it in his review, and he said it was a lot of fun. So I think that we're kind of missing a portion of Dragon Quest IX, which could actually make it something really, really special.
Yeah, I just think it's a shame that the single player experience had to suffer, because I don't like multiplayer. I mean, co-op is okay sometimes, just once in a while, but like to play most of a game with other people, I just find it annoying. I don't know. I just don't like multiplayer.
Well, I'll make sure to send BioWare a letter saying that Mass Effect 3 should have only multiplayer just for you.
Yes, I agree on that notion. Just because I'm not the biggest BioWare fan either, so hey, be spiteful.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. I'm just here to pee in your Frosted Flakes.
That's they're probably listening to us right now and thinking it's a good thing we didn't fire that multiplayer guy that we hired.
If BioWare's listening to anything right now, it's the
it's certainly not us.
No. It's the rabid fan community as they flip out over Dragon Quest and Dragon Age 2. Oh
yeah.
my god. Oh.
So yeah, I guess the only thing that really disappointed people with Dragon Quest, at least from my perspective, is a lot of people are either expecting it to be like 8 or it's their first foray into the series, whereas I fall into neither category. Like after 8, I've experienced some of the older games I've played and beaten 4 and 5. I've delved into the NES version, not any of the remakes or whatever, the original one, and kind of knew what to expect, and that's why I like the series, because I like it traditional. And I like knowing that despite all the complicated RPGs around, stuff like that, or just something that's overwhelming, I could just go back to at least one series and just kind of enjoy the simpler times without any gimmicks.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we should probably wrap it up right now so we can move on into news. But just a final note, I think that Dragon Quest IX, if you're looking for a fun, very traditional JRPG, it's got that in spades. You have so much content in this game that it will keep you busy for the rest of the summer.
And one more thing about this, because I want to do everything I went to pick in the guide, it's over 400 pages long.
Yeah, I mean, the game is huge. Like, you can play this game for, I forget which developer it was, but somebody was saying that they played like 400 hours of Dragon Quest IX. I'm like, And so if you're looking for that kind of game, it's great. But if you are maybe somebody like me who started out with Dragon Quest VIII, just temper your expectations a little bit. Realize that it is a handheld game. It's a little bit more of a traditional sort of SNES era RPG. Enjoy it for what it is, and I think you'll have fun. Don't expect it to blow you away like Dragon Quest VIII really did. So
Definitely not. They took too many. I think they took too many concessions to make it more accessible. Like, oh, it's on the DS, it's portable, it's multiplayers, and it's just. I think it kind of thinned it out a little bit too much.
All right, so without further ado, Zach has a lot of news to give us, and he was trying to sit here and yell at me through Skype that we need to get to news. So, Zach, take it away.
Well, I guess we'll go through a couple of game announcements first. On the PSP, we have Phantom Brave Portable, which is a remake. It's going to be actually the second remake because it first came out on PS2 and then a couple of years ago came out on the Wii. So it'll be a portable version, I'd assume with more content, kind of like they did with Afternoon of Darkness. There's actually not a whole lot out about that right now, but we have reviews of the older versions up on the site.
Quick question.
Yes.
I love Disgaea 1. I love that game. I played it to death. Am I going to like Phantom Brave?
I actually don't know. I haven't played Phantom Brave, but I know that it's a little bit different. It doesn't use a grid-based system. They have the
oh yeah.
Dennis,
I've
have you
played a little bit
it?
of it. Yeah, I only played like 4 chapters of it or so because I really sucked at it and I just kind of got lazy, didn't go further. It's tough and it's different because your party members can only stay in the battlefield for only a certain amount of terms because they're technically all spirits and they can only last a certain duration.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so there has that challenge factor. It's not grid-paced. You could just only move a certain radius or so, and you can pretty much pick up any scattered object and use that as a weapon. So that's kind of neat. And I kind of find the story at least quite touching. I forgot the details of it, so I can't really help there. It's a lot different from Disgaea 1, so don't expect that. It's interesting, but it's tough. And it just feels like I didn't get a good grasp of the combat system itself.
Okay. Next.
On a similar line, we have Tactics Ogre: The Wheel of Fortune, which is yeah. I kind of stopped there for a second. I was like, wait a minute.
They need to change that in the translation.
Well,
That's where localization comes in.
Oh, you know what? Here, sorry, my mistake. It's in Japan. It's going to be The Wheel of Fortune. They're going to use the Japanese title "Let Us Cling Together" for the American version because I'm reading our news article on the site.
Better.
Yeah, it's not the Wheel.
That was the SNES title name. Let us cling together.
They're using that for the North American release. I mean, I'm assuming that the Wheel of Fortune doesn't have the same stigma as it does here, and as it in Japan. And so the interesting things about this version is that they're actually bringing back a large majority of the old staff. So the director, Hiroshi Minagawa, game designer Yasumi Matsuno.
Wait, they found him?
Yes, I mean, like, there's the 2 composers, Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masaharu Iwata, and character artists, Tsubasa Masao and Akihiko Yoshida. If anyone knows those names, I mean, I don't. I just...
I figured the guy... What's the guy's... Mitsuna, I figured after, the Final Fantasy 12 debacle, like, he went and killed himself somewhere, so... It's good to see he's alive.
But yeah, so they're getting a lot of they're getting a bunch of the old developers on board, and they're I think I don't remember how much they changed about Final Fantasy Tactics from the original release to War of the Lions, but they're adding better graphics, new classes, more new skill-based gameplay features, and a bunch of other stuff, and so I never actually have played a Tactics Ogre game, but I'm interested to see what they...
And neither did I. And for the record about the changes in War of the Lions, visually it remains the same. It just added some CGI cutscenes.
And they localized it.
Yes, a much better localizations. Like, I love Tactics. That's actually one of my favorite games. But I just couldn't follow the story after, like, Chapter 2 in the PSX version.
Yeah. It was now. And what was the platform for Tactics Ogre again?
PSP as well.
Damn it! See that I just bought a DS, and now we're there's the rumor going around that Persona 5 is going to be announced for PSP, and it's like I don't want to buy a PSP, but I will.
I'll just say this: with the consoles, just go handheld.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that I feel like we're probably getting far enough into the PSP's life cycle that we're going to see a PSP 2 soon. And I mean, it's just based on how they've announced, you know, the 3DS and.
Well, because the PSP Go did so well.
Well, but I mean, it wasn't, you know, that wasn't a problem. I don't think that it's a particularly good system, but I think that they need to, you know, step up their game, because the one thing that the PSP has had going for it is its graphics, and now that the 3DS is considerably more powerful, you know, they're going to need to do something else with that.
Yeah, well, I don't want to buy Persona 5 on PSP.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a bummer. Just, you know,
that would tick me off.
It gets back to the, you know, the conversation we were just having about Dragon Quest is, you know, you would, it's so much nicer to have, you know, I mean, at least in my opinion, to have a you know, experience where you can sit down and really get sucked in, instead of having it be built for your, you know, your commute to work.
But you can do it right. I mean, you can do it right on a handheld.
Like, Persona 3 Portable, you know, if, you know, that was pretty good translation to the portable, but I mean, I would rather have a proper release and then have, you know, a PSP release after that.
Yeah. Just I think when you make a handheld game, I'd rather see a game that's designed for the handheld than trying to cram an experience onto a handheld. Like, real quick, I'm playing Chinatown Wars, and I think that overall on the handheld, I'm having more fun with it than I did any of the past Grand Theft Autos except for Vice City, my personal favorite, just because it's been especially designed for the DS. The touchscreen works great. Everything is brilliant with how it comes together. Sure, there are technical limitations, but when you design a game for a handheld system, I think you can get a lot out of it. But I don't want to see like Dragon Age crammed onto a PSP. You know, like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that on the consoles, actually, but, you know, that's a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on a similar note of console titles going to the PSP, Valkyria Chronicles 2 has been dated for North America, and it's coming at the end of August 31st. So,
cool. That was coming in the fall. Awesome.
I mean, it's right on the edge there. But yeah, now it reminds me that I need to play the original Valkyria Chronicles. I never got.
I love the original.
Oh, I really enjoyed it.
I have it laying around somewhere.
You know,
did you get through the tank? Because that's the worst part.
Yes, it took me one shot.
It took me one shot too, but I was still ticked. I wasn't having fun. It took like an hour.
Yeah, I thought it was epic.
But anyways, so I mean, we have James Quentin Clark did a review of that up on the site, and he thinks it's one of the best games of 2010 so far, at least when he wrote it back in March. So, you know, and there hasn't been much out recently except for Dragon. Yeah. So, let's see, more announcements. Recettear and Item Shop's Tale is a new game coming out. It's kind of an indie Japanese game that follows a almost Rune Factory, Harvest Moon sort of thing, where instead of having a farm and, you know, selling off your stuff, your name is Reset, which is the first half of Recettear, and you own an item shop, and you have to, you know, either just collect items in the world or, you know, go off into dungeons, kind of similar to how in Rune Factory you go off, you know, and can like plant in dungeons and stuff like that. So there's an English demo on the game site that we have a link to on RPG Fan, and it seems like it's going to be an interesting kind of indie PC RPG, which I feel like are, you know, especially on the JRPG front, you don't really hear about very many indie JRPGs on the PC.
So wait, are you basically like one of the townsfolk in Diablo that's like scalping prices for like daggers and crap? Like,
I mean, I guess the goal of the game is to pay off this debt you have, and if you don't pay it off, then they confiscate your item shop or something.
It sounds kind of awesome because, like, you know, imagine how much money you spend in a store during an RPG, and then somebody who's telling you, like, oh my God, the lands are threatened by an evil dark force, and we're gonna lose all our friends and family. Oh, geez, that's terrible. Well, I'm here to help you, and, you know, just give me some armor. Okay, well, I got to charge you. What? No, I got to charge you. Seriously, I got to make sure I make a profit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm interested to see what they do, how the localization team does on that, because it's a very, I think it's one of the newer localization team called Carpe Fulgur, if I pronounced that right. And sorry guys if I didn't, but yeah. So I'm interested to see what they do with that. I'll run quickly through the next couple because we're running long a bit. But EA announces Dark Spore action RPG.
What?
Yeah, it's I don't know, in the news, the subtitle I said it's like Spore but dark and filled with teenage angst. But no, it's basically an action RPG in the vein of Diablo with 4-player co-op. I think unless I misread the press release, they're also going to have like a versus sort of multiplayer. You assemble a team of quote unquote genetic heroes, and you customize them with body parts, DNA, armor, so basically like loot. And you have to save the world from the malicious forces of the dark spore. And so,
are you using the creature creator at all?
Yeah, that's sort of how you, instead of.
So we're gonna basically gonna see a bunch of penis monsters in full body armor.
I don't know about that. I think there's specific like classes and hero types. Well, I mean that's what they call it. I'm just saying what they say in the press release. But I don't think that you're going to be using the creature creator to the full extent that it was used in Spore. But it's gonna you're gonna, instead of having new weapons and armor and gems and enchantments and stuff like that, you're gonna have body parts that you can switch out that give you new attacks, and DNA which changes your stats. And an interesting thing that they're doing is you have like a mini party that you can switch between 3 heroes at a time. Like, so let's say one is like, I guess they're going for like warrior mage thief sort of archetype, so fast, strong, and wizardly. But so you'll take out like one of you'll have to use like a faster hero to take out some of the faster enemies. And I mean, it seems interesting. And and they also have party skills. So if you have one of your heroes that has a teleport move and it's set to party skill, all of your creatures can use that. So
that's kind of cool.
And there's an AI director. That's my last kind of bullet point, is they have in the vein of Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, they have an AI director which will kind of dynamically create the levels, and is said to boast increased replayability, although I'm not sure how I would take that.
Well, I mean, it's definitely an interesting direction for the Spore franchise, and we'll have to see. I mean, now that Will Wright isn't there anymore, we have to see if they can produce something. I think Spore was most people would agree it was a massive disappointment. So maybe now trying to get the franchise brand onto something.
Sorry.
Okay. Maybe trying to get the franchise brand on something else that maybe it's a little bit more profitable. I mean, that's the right thing to do. So.
More announcements, because there are so many. These 2 weeks have been just absurd. New Mass Effect 2 DLC, Layer of the Shadow Broker, which I will say that I might actually buy this one, because I haven't bought any of the DLC that's come out so far, and I probably will eventually. But the gist of this one is that you join up with Liara, from the first game, and also she made a guest appearance in the second game, and it follows the story, or it follows after the events of the story in the comic book series Mass Effect Redemption, where Liara worked with the Shadow Broker and then kind of broke away from him or her. I don't know exactly who it is, but it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate that fiction, because obviously not everyone's read the comic series, and just to see, I don't know if anything happened with the Shadow Broker in Mass Effect 2. I don't. It's been a while since I played it. I didn't get quite far enough, maybe, but that's a very mysterious and intriguing character in the Mass Effect universe, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. What choices might carry over to the next game, and what choices will come in from Mass Effect 1. Because if you'll recall, maybe there was a mission where you were retrieving some sort of information on this secret project that Cerberus was doing, and by not sending it to the Shadow Broker, you had like a negative reputation thing with him. So we'll see what happens.
Keep going.
38 Studios announces Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning.
That's the Kurt Schilling MMO.
Yep. Well, no, this is
the action game.
Yeah, it's it's not quite an action RPG in the sense that Diablo is an action RPG, but if you think Oblivion meets God of War, that's kind of how they're describing the game. So it's an open world game set in the realm of Amalur, which was created by R.A. Salvatore, who's, you know, well-known fantasy author, and Todd McFarlane, who is the artist who created Spawn. And I mean,
well, if Todd McFarlane's name is on the game, then, you know, it's got to be good.
I have no preconceived notion either way for that. He's just doing the art.
I'm done making comments. I apologize. I just had to take a crap on Todd McFarlane.
But yeah, so it's coming out PS3, Xbox 360, and PC sometime next fall. So that's 2011. So it'll be, you know, we don't have much information. There's a trailer up on our site, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when they announce their MMO, because on both of the, you know, like the blurbs that they had before they announced this game, they said that the world and art were created by, you know, R.A. Salvatore and Todd McFarlane for both games. So I have a feeling that the MMO is going to be something like Kingdoms of Amalur Online, but that's speculation on my behalf. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Jumping to online stuff, Demon's Souls Online support has been extended. Unfortunately, not indefinitely, but March 2011 will be the very earliest that Atlas will cut off the server support. I know, Rob, you love
it.
Yeah, it's on sale now. I don't know if it's right now, but it should be on sale for about $30. And now that, you know, like, and they're changing the server world tendency to white for the next couple of weeks to
that'll make it much easier for new gamers getting involved.
So everyone should go pick up a copy if you have a PS3. It's definitely one of the better games on the PS3 right now.
Yeah, that was one of my two favorite RPGs of last year. That and Dragon Age were my two favorites. Demon's Souls, it's just an experience I think that you really, even if you hate it, I just think you should try it. Like, you don't have to go out and buy it, but just, it's so different and so unique. I think you have to try it. I totally understand why some people hate it, and, you know, I can respect that, but that game is incredible. I loved it.
And then final news of the night. Final Fantasy XIV has 18 classes at launch.
Nice.
And over half of them are gathering and crafting classes.
Oh.
Which, you know, is interesting. There are 7 combat classes and 11, if I counted that right, gathering and crafting classes. Which
that does make 18, Zach.
Yep. Hey, you know what?
7 plus 11 equals 18.
I did my brain age today, so there you go.
But yeah, so there are 5 disciplines of war, which are basically the melee classes, 2 magic classes, disciplines of magic, which are, you know, and then mining, herb gathering, and fisherman classes, and then some crafting stuff. So
that's so mundane, like, and I know the purpose of it, but like when I play a game,
you don't want to be.
When I play a game, I don't want to be something I could be in real life. I don't want to be a fisherman.
I mean, I'm thinking
the
interesting thing that you know, to take into account when you're thinking about how they have 18 classes is that the armory system, which is the more all-encompassing name for the class system in Final Fantasy XIV, is basically a skill-based system. So I think in Final Fantasy Tactics you could have like a paladin that had dual wield or whatever.
Yeah,
and, you know, and basically customize a class with various class skills, and that's the sort of things that you have going on here. So you won't have to, you know, like be a dedicated miner or something, like grind through 75 levels of mining, which would just be absurd.
All right,
but you know, like one of the class skills for blacksmith, which creates, you know, weapons and other tools that you use to craft other things. They can weaken enemies who are constructed of metal. So, you know, like if you end up fighting any like steampunk robots in the game, you know, like having a class skill from the blacksmith will help you take that on. Or, you know, like the conjurer, which is the direct damage magic class as well as the healing class. If I've read correctly, there, not all the details have been announced. You know, like you have to you can either, you know, like you might be able to make a more combat casting class by throwing together, like an archer and some direct damage magic spells, or you could do like a more paladin sort of thing with a marauder, which is a heavily armored axe wielding class, and like throwing in some healing spells. So I mean, I'm interested to see what they do, and apparently like the beta's been going pretty well. I don't know, I'm pretty excited for not having played so much of the first of Final Fantasy 11. So any Dennis, I know you played a lot of that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm not actually hyping myself much. I'm not really looking to it much because it's like, yeah, back then it was a long ways away. It's like I don't want to get myself excited or look deeply into it. It's like I'll just look more into it, get more excited when the time draws near, which I believe it's coming out in September or so,
Yeah,
right?
September 22nd for the limited edition and September 30th for the regular edition. And that's just on PC.
And that's a PC,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
The PS3 version's coming in.
So yeah, I'm excited, and for the crafting and stuff, I hope it's a lot less tedious than it was in 11. I just couldn't bother with it. Hoping more it's sort of similar to just how fast-paced like World of Warcraft kind of did it, but I don't want it to be exactly like World of Warcraft either. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, when's the PS3 version coming out, Zach?
Sometime in March, and probably by then, they've said that they are going to be adding more classes eventually. So, here's to a.
And I assume it's gonna be all interconnected, like how the PC, PS2, and 360 version all share the same server, and all the players from those can just interact in the same place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. I don't think that they have an Xbox 360 version planned.
It's coming. It's coming.
Eventually, but they're Microsoft's going to have to pay them a bit more, just because like their excuse right now is that the non-open nature of Xbox Live leaves a bit to be desired, but that's just we want more money.
Translation: we need more money.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's all for all like 10 stories of news.
Woohoo! All right, I think we're just about done. So I hope everybody had an excellent week. Kyle, it was great to have you back on the show. How worried are you about Dragon Age 2 right now?
I was a little worried at first. I wasn't sure I liked the new art style, the art direction, but I'm just gonna trust BioWare.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to sit back and hopefully these bad news stories that have been coming out for the past couple weeks that couldn't be more vague if they tried. Hopefully we'll try to hear some more about it. So
I think it'll be fine.
I'm gonna trust them on this one. I always talk about how I like to see new things in video games. So let's let them try something new and we'll see how it goes. So
yep.
Hopefully BioWare won't break your heart.
Oh, they already SquareSoft, bro. Yeah. Square Enix breaks my heart every other week. So
you went to a new boyfriend, which is BioWare.
BioWare and I seem to be getting along all right. We had a little bit of a falling out with Mass Effect 1, but we're back on good terms now. So
Snuggle.
I am a cuddler. So there you go. Thank you everybody for listening. For Kyle, Zach, Dennis, and myself, thank you very much for listening to Random Encounter, and we will talk to you guys later.
Good night.